Olympiacos, Real Madrid.
Olympiacos. The normal way is the way that I say it.
Olympiacos, the People's Club, serial winners. Welcome back, red and white fans. I'm Adi, and this is Theros International, and we have an extremely special guest for you today. You may recognize him for those of you that are watching on audio, those of you that are watching on video. For audio, in front of me, I have Nico Cantor from CBS Sports Golazo. You may also recognize him for our Spanish-speaking listeners from Fútbol de Primera, the radio show. So you might recognize him from there. Nico, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have a lovely chat about Olympiacos and Greek football through an American lens. How are you doing today?
Adi, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on to talk a little bit about Greek football, for me to learn a little bit more as well. So thank you for the invitation.
I have to tell you, it's always so weird when I hear somebody say my name correctly that I've never spoken to before outside of this, especially somebody that's based in America. It's always people with the ethnic backgrounds that get my name correctly. So it's very,
I try to do my best. I've realized over the last couple of years that Greek is you guys are like the Latinos of Europe. So I try a little bit, especially in the pronunciation. It's a little bit easier for us.
You know, I've always realized that, especially when I meet people in the States, everybody I meet that's of Spanish background, they can say my name without problems. Anybody else, they mess it up entirely. And from all Olympiacos fans, by the way, we all would like to thank you for saying Olympiacos and trying to teach Jamie Carragher how to say Olympiacos correctly. So that's a big thank you for all of us.
Of course, I to be honest, I think I botched it. I got as close as I could get.
A lot closer than him.
With Jamie, we have this running joke about me trying to pronounce the names as much as I can. Funny enough, my mind was switched into Spanish mode, so I'd said Real Madrid as I say it normally, right? For me, it's almost harder to say Real Madrid, anglicizing it. So I just kind of said it natural. I didn't even realize, right? I said Real Madrid, but usually Olympiacos, I tried to give it, the Greek pronunciation as close as I can, but I went Olympiacos, like a lot of people say in Spanish instead of Olympiacos. So I apologize. I try to get as close as I can. It's not for the Americans. It's not for the English. I always try to pronounce the names as close as possible for the fans from that country, from that team, so they finally hear their name pronounced right, because I feel like a lot of the time just names are just pronounced how we think they're pronounced. So I try to give it that authenticity behind it.
Well, look, we appreciate it, and it certainly is better than Olympiacos, because that's definitely not how it's pronounced. But anyway, moving on, Nico. Like I said, we thank you so much for trying to have that appreciation for the name and for saying it correctly. I know I appreciate it, and I can speak, I believe, for all red white fans when I say that as well. But let's get to know you a little bit more before we continue here. Tell us first of all, where are you based, and how did you begin your career in sports commentary, specifically football commentary?
Yeah, so a lot of Greek football fans and Greeks listening to this podcast right now will be shocked, or at least happy to learn that I live in Astoria, Queens, in the heart of Greeks in America, I would say. Yep. I don't know the actual numbers, but I'm willing to bet a top dollar that the highest concentration of Greeks outside of Greece, or at least in the United States, is in Astoria, New York, specifically in this part of Queens. So over the last couple of years, I've really gotten into the Greek culture, the Greek food. I tell people this all the time. If I had to choose one cuisine to eat for the rest of my life, it wouldn't be Argentine steak or Argentine barbecue, asado. That's my culture, my heritage. I would eat Mediterranean food, Asian food, Greek food for the rest of my life, without a shadow of a doubt. I make the meanest Greek salad. I challenge anybody. I've had all the Greek salads in the air, and now I'm so proud to make my Greek salad with epiru feta. It's don't even get me started on the food, because we can turn this into a podcast about food.
Oh, there'll be some food questions later. Don't worry. Only cucumber and tomato in the Greek salad?
I do slice very thinly some red onion.
Oh, acceptable. We accept
Yeah. And I drop a pepperoncini in there, one just to
that. So you're based in Astoria. You're based in probably the largest city diaspora community of Greek Americans.
yeah.
And so let's before we talk about the foray into Olympiacos, tell us about how you found yourself with CBS Sports Golazo. How did you get into football commentary to begin with?
Yeah, so I've been working with CBS for 5.5 years now. I started in
Oh, wow.
2020, yeah, during the pandemic. I've been in journalism and in broadcast for the last 10 or so years. For those of you who don't know, my father is Andres Cantor. He is a legendary pioneer broadcaster in the United States. Are you,
I
are
should
you
have put
just
two
real?
and
There you go.
yeah,
You're just putting two
I
and two
didn't
together, huh?
blink. Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I obviously started from a very privileged position in the broadcast world. And I've worked my way through the ranks. Honestly, I was working production really crazy hours when I got started at Univision, what is now 2DN, Univision Sports. But Ari, I'm very happy that you didn't even realize that I'm my dad's son, which hopefully speaks to my credibility. That you at least had my respect for what I do without understanding that my dad is who he is, because he's an extraordinary broadcaster, and I got to learn from the best in the business from a very young age, even before I was a professional. Going to the TV network when I was little with my dad, I would stay up late seeing him do what he does best and work his craft. So I started out with my dad's radio company, Fútbol de Primera, when I was very young. When I was like 15, doing a lot of summer tournaments when I was in high school. Then I started working in TV at Univision. Actually, it was my dad's competition, right? Because my dad was at Telemundo for so long, and I was at Univision. Right. Ironically enough, it's where my dad started, right? And then I started. We had Champions League coverage at Univision, and I was an important part of that coverage on their radio and on TV. So I'm so grateful for my time at Univision, because I had to really get a very global understanding of the game from MLS, Liga MX. I was a U.S. men's national team reporter for the soccer team, the football, the national team. And then I had to dip my feet into absolutely everything, because at that age, I was like in my early 20s, I was doing as much as I could. And then 5.5 years ago, I switched over to English language, and I've been working with CBS covering the Champions League ever since. And it's the best job in the world.
That's incredible. And were you born in the States? Because you sound like you're from here. You have the Northeast accent. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. I was born in Miami, born and raised in Miami, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my dad is Argentine heritage. My mom is from Honduras, actually. So I've got a little bit of a multicultural mix as well. But I think when people ask me, where you from? Although like I'm like very culturally Argentine. You see like the Bombonera, the Boca Stadium right behind me. I grew up understanding football through an Argentinian lens, and an American lens as well. Don't get me wrong, but what I feel, what speaks to the heart, is the way that I view football through an Argentine perspective. But when people ask me, where are you from? I say Miami. And Miami tends to be from the United States. Depends how you look at it, right? Because we're so many Latinos over there. But my Miami experience is a quintessential American experience that I don't think you can get anywhere else in the world. So similar to what I'm seeing here now, understanding how Queens and Brooklyn works with, the diasporas of so many different countries, I had a very similar upbringing with the Latino diasporas in Miami.
And that explains how you're able to cover so well teams from different countries.
I appreciate that.
You have that empathy already. So that's incredible. Now, let's go back to your story. You're based in Astoria, Greek American Central.
Yeah.
Was Olympiacos your first encounter, we'll say, with Greek football? Was it through the community, or was it that El Kabi bicycle kick at AFCON that kind of really opened the lens for you?
I mean, I've been aware of Greek football my entire life, basically, right? When you enter this world of football, you know about Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, right?
Right.
It's a derby that I think should be on everybody's bucket list if it isn't already, right? And slowly as your perspectives start broadening and you start meeting people from all around the world, you start realizing and trying to understand their football reality, right? Because everybody perceives football in a different way, and everybody has different backgrounds, different experiences with the sport, and I think that's beautiful. Everybody's stadium experience, right? In Argentina, we say, oh, that person has a lot of cancha, which means that they've been to the stadium a lot. So when you've been to the stadium and you're there every single weekend, suffering for Olympiacos, cheering for Olympiacos in those do or die moments, in the very bad ones, in the incredible moments of glory, you've been through it all. And that gives you a lot of cancha, and it gives you a very unique perspective on what it's like to consume football, to live football, and how it should be spoken about. What standard to hold teams to, what standard to hold club presidents to. And Olympiacos, just like Panathinaikos, which I think are the two big institutions that you meet when you're starting to understand Greek football. They are massive pillars of Greek society, of Greek football, of the way of that you understand life. So I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means, but I sympathize with all of the emotions because I see something very similar in the passion that I grew up having for football. And although I don't understand a single thing, I football is the common denominator, the common language that makes me understand Greek football a little bit more.
Absolutely. And you see that passion. Like, I watch Boca River every
Mm-hmm.
year and it's utter insanity, the atmosphere that the fans create. And it's the same in Greece. You know, if you looked at the matches this season, I know you saw the Barcelona match. Our away fans, even in the stadium, they weren't playing at New Camp, they were playing in, I already forgot the name of the
Yeah, in
stadium.
Montjuic, in the
Montjuic.
Olympic Stadium. Yeah.
You could hear our fans, the small number that were there, a few thousand, but they were on their feet the whole time, screaming for no matter what the case was. Even as things got bad after the red card, they were still there screaming for their team. And that's the passion that we have. Now, I wanted to ask you, as to get a little bit of a baseline here, especially for our Greek listeners that maybe don't understand. Obviously, Olympiacos for them is the biggest club in the world. In their
Yeah.
heart, it's the best club in the world. But as somebody who lives in sports commentary, you report on it, you see it, give a little bit of an explanation for our very large audience in Greece, kind of where Olympiacos stands in the pecking order, we'll say, of the big teams. You know, just to give them an idea that for us, it's a big club, but Olympiacos, by and large, is, especially in the States, maybe not be the biggest or in the same, in the same conversation as maybe a top five team, a team in a top five league.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Obviously, especially from a media perspective, there's the top five, and within the top five, there's like the Premier League, right? That has clubs that are very marketable outside of like the demographic that the club represents. Um, and there's this obsession in the United States for European football, for these teams in the top five. And I would say specifically Premier League, then Real Madrid, Barcelona, and then a couple of Italian clubs here, there, Inter, Milan, whatnot. But for the English speakers specifically, I think there's a strong following for the Premier League, and that's why I think from a media perspective, anybody outside that top five, I think, takes a little bit of a back seat. But what Olympiacos fans might feel is something that I might feel as well as a Boca fan. To me, Boca is the greatest club in the world. I saw my team win 4 Copa Libertadores titles, which is the equivalent of the South American Champions League, and then in 2 of those occasions beat Real Madrid and beat Milan. That's when I was about 8, 9 years old, maybe a little bit older, and I had all the reason to believe Boca was the best club in the world. But obviously, within the greater context of the football world, Boca isn't perceived that way. But Boca, a lot of the times, and I think you could make the same case for Olympiacos, Boca often says that they're big because of their fans. They are a great club because of their fans. And when you have such popular support, it's almost like it transcends wins, losses, trophies won, trophies lost. And Olympiacos, like I was saying, from my understanding as an American broadcaster, somebody that's foreign to the day-to-day of Greek football, Olympiacos is a pillar of society. It's a way of defining yourself. It's a way of living. And you see it because it's a massive institution that doesn't only have football. It has so many sports that they're successful in. I mean, the way that they're able to branch out into so many aspects of Greek society and then even European society. You look at the EuroLeague and you look at the success that Greek football teams have. It goes beyond sports. So this popular movement, it's not something to kind of just cast to the side. And the sheer force of that, I think, makes a club great and a club that's well respected. So although Olympiacos might not sit at the same table as a Manchester City, as a PSG, as an Atletico Madrid, there is a big amount of respect that I think a lot of people, and I do too, have for a club the size of Olympiacos.
And one of the things also that for our American listeners or even our listeners that are outside of Greece, that's kind of weird is like how tight into politics the clubs are.
Yeah.
All the clubs in Greece, they are deep. There's deep political connections with all of them. And if I were to talk, I'm from originally Baltimore. If I were to talk to a generic person that has no affiliation with anything Greek football related, and they follow the Baltimore Orioles, the Baltimore Ravens, and if I were to tell them that the club was involved in politics, it would be like the Ravens or the Orioles kind of centering themselves in Baltimore politics. You would think you don't do that. There's a huge separation here between that. So it's very weird to think about in those terms.
Yeah, but for me, like that's almost normal, right? Because it's very powerful people run these clubs, and to me, I understand that, and that's why I think it goes beyond sport. Your fandom is more than just fandom with football a lot of the times in a lot of countries, but specifically when there's several teams that are so big, like in Greece, like in Argentina, for example. It doesn't shock me when I see how involved these teams are. So it's like, to me, you can't even compare American sports fandoms to football fandoms, and especially in some cases when it's almost like extreme, right?
Right. Exactly. Now, even though maybe not every American will know Olympiacos, I'm sure at the very least a larger majority, including in media in the United States, will know the owner, Vangelis Marinakis, who now is officially the most successful Greek football owner, we can say. He's now won 19 titles, including the Super Cup that we just won 2 days ago at the time of recording here. So he's now won 19 trophies at Olympiacos. That's the most of any owner of any Greek football team. So I'm sure that at least he is probably on more minds, not just as an Olympiacos owner, but of course he owns Rio Ave now and Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. So I'm assuming that more people will probably know who Marinakis is maybe than Olympiacos.
Yeah. I mean, I think football fans who know who Marinakis is know that he owns one of the biggest clubs in Europe beyond the ones that he has in the Premier League, right? I mean, let's with all respect to Nottingham Forest, they won 2 European championships, right? Like two
Yep.
where it is now the Champions League. So I think people do know about Olympiacos, and Marinakis is not someone who's afraid of the spotlight, right? And of
No.
making
Big
his
personality.
personality very, very felt. So I do think people know who Olympiacos are, and it's almost like Greek football sometimes plays by different rules, right? And sometimes, I mean, football in reality plays by different rules, and sometimes those rules are a little bit gray, sometimes they're well defined, but um people know who Marinakis is and people know who Olympiacos is, in my opinion.
And the reason I bring all of this up is because for a club like Olympiacos that looks to try and expand its footprint, its global footprint, we'll say, very important events like the magical 2 bicycle kicks that we've seen from Ayoub El Kabi that have now been seen around the world. People see that type of thing. They say, wait, who does he play for? Oh, he plays for Olympiacos. And that is going to be, while it may not be yours or my first sight of Greek football, Olympiacos, it's now the first sight of many and first introduction of many for who otherwise would have not been knowing Olympiacos. They don't know that he is the leading scorer of the Conference League 2 years ago when he didn't play a single group stage match. They wouldn't know that he's the leading scorer in the Europa League last year without playing a single knockout match. Extremely important things to elevate Greek football.
Yeah, I mean, I think at first, for example, like the fact that Olympiacos won the Conference League has helped a lot. And I was at first critical of the Conference League, like, oh, who's gonna care about these tournaments and blah blah blah, because I think we're so focused on, like you mentioned, those top 5 European teams. But the thing is that top 5 European teams still have a shot of playing in Conference League, and lo and behold, Aston Villa was in Conference League, and everybody thought that they were gonna win. But I'm glad to see that Olympiacos was able to prevail, beat Aston Villa with El Kabi scoring 5 freaking goals. Like it puts on display in those massive moments that there is incredible football and incredible stories beyond your typical names in European football, right? In Champions League, and I'm talking about, again, those top 5 teams and the teams that we usually see in Champions League. And I mean, the signing of big names also helps Olympiacos, and they've been in those areas of the world the front runners to kind of like keep Olympiacos relevant. It's a way of spreading your brand, right? So it's not only El Kabi, but I think of like Chori Dominguez, people in Argentina, Alejandro Dominguez back in the day, like
Legend.
Yeah, there you go. Like we're talking a lot about Chori Dominguez and a lot about Olympiacos. And I think if, like, in Argentina, you tell me, name me one Argentine Olympiacos player, I think everybody's mind goes Chori Dominguez immediately, right? And that's a part of the marketing and the branding and the strategy of clubs like Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, but even, like, shall I say, the Turkish clubs as well, right? Like Galatasaray and Fenerbahce, that have had history of winning European competition. So I'm really glad that a Greek side was finally able to win a European trophy and kind of put the respect on Greek football where it deserves to be.
Now, as somebody that covers football, this is a question we ask everybody who kind of has we'll say, an outside look at things. The way you see it now and the way things are progressing, what would it take for Olympiacos to be mentioned more often in media, we'll say, closer to along the lines of the clubs from the top 5 leagues? Is it more success that they would need to have, or do other teams in Greece also need to succeed for that to be elevated?
I think that would help if Greek football had a little bit more of representation in the bigger tournaments. But not only that, I think if Olympiacos or Panathinaikos, because I think it's very difficult for one club to represent an entire football, and that goes along with years of effort, of consistency, which is very difficult in football, of having good infrastructure to kind of stay competitive within the European ecosystem. But if Olympiacos managed to appear in the Champions League knockout stage, have a cheeky run here or there consistently, I think there would be a little bit more of a respect, right? I'm not talking about a group stage win here or there, especially I think with this new format with the league phase, it's easier to glorify results that,
Yes.
frankly, like even for the big teams, right? Like to me, you win a game against a big team and there's so many other games that you can either reset or get points off of and eventually make it into the knockout stage. Like when it is do or die, when there's an elimination on the line, that's when you create history. Before with the group stage, it's like you had a couple of games here or there to get it right. And if you got it right, you were in, and that kind of like boosted you, right? And a loss could set you back. Here, it's like a loss. I'm talking about for the majority of the teams, because the majority of the teams make it through to the next stage. So I think for Greek football, for a Panathinaikos on Olympiacos to be respected as Greek football fans might feel that they should be respected, it is that Champions League knockout stage appearance, pulling off an upset here or there. So I think those moments would be legendary, and they live on for a while. Those memorable teams. The last like team that I can think of that was kind of like a random team, almost like Galatasaray for in 2013. They made like a quarterfinal appearance. They beat Schalke in the round of 16. Then into the quarterfinal, they lost to Real Madrid, but they were pretty competitive. And I'm talking about a team that had Drogba, Schneider, a very memorable team. Galatasaray, and I think Turkish football has fallen off a lot since then, and they might have their reasons and their answers for why that's happened. But for Greek club, it takes one run and then another one to people say, oh, we should watch out with Olympiacos. They on their day they can beat anybody, and obviously if that's in the Champions League, it helps.
While we're on the topic of the Champions League, because you brought it up, Greeks, and I know a lot of Olympiacos fans, when they first changed the format, most of us hated it. But I'll be honest with you, yeah, we were not fans of it because, every time when you don't really you don't like change, you're used to how things are. You don't really like it. But I got to tell you, having watched it now, the second season that they've done this whole league phase situation, we'll say, it's grown on me.
Okay.
Big time. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it a lot. And I like being able to see more teams than just, because if you get into a bad group in the group stage, the standard group stage format, you look at it and you say, oh man, we got bad teams. Especially if you're a team that doesn't have the budget of the teams that you're in, you're like,
right.
Man, we've had some groups of death in the past as Olympiacos in the Champions League, and you lose those games. There's no hope. You know what I mean? You're hoping to get third, maybe drop down to the next, but this is enjoyable. You play 8 different teams. You go to many different places aside from your home matches. And I've really enjoyed that. I enjoyed it last year during the Europa League, and I really enjoy it now this season.
I think that's fair. And I think especially a team the size of Olympiacos, which probably are not going to be in a pot 2 or pot 1, right?
Right.
Odds are Olympiacos are going to be in the group of death because it's Olympiacos, right? Because you're going to get a pot 1 team that's good. You're going to get a pot 2 team that's good. And if Olympiacos is pot 3 or pot 4, there's your group of death, right? So I see what you're saying. This new format to me has produced more A-list matchups, but they mean less.
Yes, I will attest to that.
The stakes are diluted over so many games because you can correct course with so many other games. Depends who you are, right? I'm looking at it from a macro perspective, from a broadcaster perspective, or the ultimate neutral, if you will, because I don't have any dog in this race. But I look at it like, let's take the example of Olympiacos. You guys are on the cusp, right? You've only won one game in Champions League so far. Felt probably cheated out of a couple, especially that Barcelona match. But there's still a chance. There really is a chance. And what do you guys have? Bayer Leverkusen, and who's the other team? Bayer Leverkusen,
We have Leverkusen and Ajax.
Ajax away, and Ajax is not so hot. So there's a chance, which is great. So there are so many teams that I think it's very difficult for the neutral football fan, or perhaps the fan that supports a big club, to find interest lower on the table. But I do feel for what you're feeling, because there's the possibility of a real shot to make it into a next round, a knockout stage. And there it depends who you draw, and it's luck of the draw, and who knows what run Olympiacos can go on. But I do see how fans of a specific team, of a team where perhaps you need to give 120% to make the next round, how it can be exciting.
Now, Nico, we are about 30 minutes in here. I had one question I wanted to ask you before we begin to kind of start to wrap things up here. And I ask this to pretty much anybody that's in any type of broadcasting or commentary. In your opinion, because you've seen and you've been through many different types of football, right? You brought up your Argentinian background. You've now with the MLS, with the U.S. national team, you cover also Champions League. A team outside of the top five.
Yeah.
If you were the president of the board, the Football Association, how would you approach getting your league to become a top five league?
I would develop a lot of the infrastructure. If obviously that takes a lot of money. But I feel where countries outside of the top five, maybe it's not the case for Major League Soccer, because I think Major League Soccer has infrastructure. There's just not a football culture, a very innate football culture like there is in other countries. But developing of the infrastructure and then coaching I think will definitely help build a league. Having the machines, the recovery machines, the good pitches, good training centers, that then make it more attractive for better players, better coaching, and even investment in local coaching. And then I mean, honestly, I'm a cynic, and I think the gap between the top five and maybe even like just the best teams in the world is so large. Like I see the same problem in Argentina. No one wants to stay in Argentina anymore, right? A good Greek footballer is going to want to leave immediately, right? Like they play a couple of good games, then a bigger club is going to come, give a good fee, and you're gone. I mean, obviously Greece has this background similarly to Argentina of financial crisis where money comes in, and that euro, that dollar, it's worth a lot, right? So it's specifically in Greece and specifically in Argentina, I think there need, like, with better financial support and better financial backing, you have ground to stand on to kind of revolutionize the structure or the remaining structure of what's there. But same thing's happening in Argentina, where look at Julian Alvarez. 20 years ago, Julian Alvarez would have been an idol for River. He would have stayed a couple of years, maybe won a Libertadores, won a couple of league titles, And then when you were an idol, revered by the fans, you make the move to Europe and try your luck in Europe. Like Julian Alvarez is identified with River, but is he an idol? No. And I think you look at Boca and River, there are very few idols as of recently. And perhaps at Olympiacos, you do have more idols because you can attract those types of stars. Greece is a very beautiful country, and it's in Europe, and you're able to bring people there. So I think with infrastructure, with the established football culture, if you combine those two things, I think there's a recipe for success.
Would you agree? We've had a couple people that said that in the short term, they believe the only course of action for smaller leagues to take is to kind of like prioritize the big teams. So like in Greece, it would be the big four, right? Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, AEK, PAOK. And do what you can, because they're the ones that are usually in Europe. Do what you can to make them do better in Europe, because then the success will trickle down to the rest of the league. Do you have any belief in something like that? That's been mentioned a couple times.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you help your coefficient, you get more recognition, more money comes in, but then you end up being top heavy. And I think that's happened in several leagues around the world. Look at Scotland.
Right.
Beyond Rangers and Celtic, even if like right now, Celtic and Rangers are a disaster. The league is very thin after that. In Turkey, it's between like even Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce hasn't won the league in like the last 10 or something years, and it just feels like it's either those two teams, right? Occasionally you'll get your like Trabzonspor that wins, your Istanbul Başakşehir that wins. That is, it's a government-backed team or a government-linked team. Like it's usually the three Istanbul teams, and then the rest of the league is pretty thin. I'm a believer that perhaps support, like with that infrastructure, for having like good youth development to make the league robust, competitive. That in turn will make Olympiacos better. The fact that you don't have to walk through games. Like I'm looking at at the schedule. I don't know who Iraklis is, but you know, if Iraklis
second division team.
Okay, then I guess that was like a friendly or something, or
it was a cup game.
Cup game, or like Ofi, Panetolikos, Atromitos, all these teams that perhaps might feel like a cakewalk, that maybe Olympiacos can play at 80% and get by. If Olympiacos had to give 100%, that would only make them better. If every single weekend they had to give 100%, and I feel like when it's too top heavy, I think it tends to do more harm than good.
Well, Nico, thank you so much you gave us some great insights, great inputs. I really appreciate the time that you took to talk to us and speak to us, and the fact that you actually have a pretty good knowledge of Greek football too. It's very refreshing. As we do with all of our guests, just to get to know you a little bit better, we have some quick fire questions. They're very fast. First thing that comes to the top of your head.
Okay.
So like I said, we have 5 of them, and you talked about it already, food, but that's the first question. What is your favorite food?
So anything along the Mediterranean is number one. And I have respect for all food. Argentine food speaks to my heart. But if I had to choose one food, and it's not because I'm on this podcast, it's Greek food. But living here in Astoria, man, like I've had a lot of Mediterranean food, like even from North Africa. Like Egyptian Mediterranean food is amazing. Asian food, Cyprus, Turkey, it's all amazing, so healthy and so good. So anything along the Mediterranean, I mean, and obviously Spain, Italy has incredible food, but anything on the Mediterranean, I'm there.
Any particular dish, or is it the Greek salad?
Fish. Give me like a fish on the grill, charred on the outside, olive oil, salt, and I'm the happiest person I could be.
I think a lot of people would agree with you there. My wife especially. What about your favorite movie and show?
Ah, favorite movie and show. I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't watch a lot of shows recently. I do have a show that I liked. It's got canceled. It's called The Nick. Knick. It's about the Knickerbocker Hospital in the year 1900 in New York City. It has 2 seasons. It was incredible television, and I'm so sad. Maybe I like it so much because it got canceled. I highly recommend it. I don't know what it's on, but highly recommended. In movie, I guess Shawshank Redemption, but I'm not like obsessive about movies. I watch so much football that I don't have time for shows.
I'm gonna look up the Nick. I've never heard it before, but I'll check it out
Yeah, it's under
now
the
for
radar. I
sure.
think it's incredible.
Absolutely, I will definitely be checking that out for sure. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Favorite vacation spot. Anywhere in the Caribbean. As a family, we've been going to St. Bart's. It's a beautiful jewel of the Caribbean. We've been going there for several years, and it's so pristine. It's kept its essence. It's paradise on earth. So very beautiful. But I do like going to Buenos Aires as well. Buenos Aires is a beautiful, beautiful city.
What would be your favorite football related memory? It could be if you played growing up, it can be as a
Mm.
commentator, anything. What's your favorite memory related to football?
My favorite football related memory. Um I think it's back in the day. I'm talking 2007, the last time Boca won the Copa Libertadores. I was young when so Boca wins a couple of Libertadores around the turn of the century. Um and I was 7, 8, 9 when Boca wins. But then they won it again in 2007. And that's when I had a little better understanding of the football world, and I went to the first leg at Boca. It was against Gremio, and Riquelme put on a show, Boca put on a show, and I remember that day very, very well. I was fortunate enough to go with my dad and share that moment, and being in the Bombonera, really, it is a privilege to experience that type of atmosphere that is very unique in the world. I think Greek football and Argentine football are very similar in the passion, but I think the passion is expressed in a very different way. I think in Greece it's very almost like warrior like everybody in unison, either jeering, whistling, or jumping up and down. The massive stadium tifo, it's like intimidating. Whereas Argentinians, they have that same type of passion, but it's more carnival like. It's more songs, it's more of a party. So it's different, and both are extremely beautiful. But the ones and to be honest, now I would love to go to an Olympiacos game. So whoever
You
wants to
have to.
invite me, I'm ready to go. But being at the Bombonera is an incredible party that I've never seen anywhere else in the world.
Listen, get to Greece and then we'll get you to a game so you can
Okay, lovely,
see it for
lovely.
sure. And then the last one. If money wasn't a problem, where would you go?
Ha! If money wasn't a problem, where would I go? I would go to the most random places on earth that I'll never have the opportunity to go. I'm talking about like all of those weird islands off of like Australia on the west coast of Australia. Um I don't know, like the Christmas Islands, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, like in Oceania, see how it all works. I mean, I'm a sucker for Google Maps. I'm like looking at all of these places in the world that I'm probably never gonna go because I won't have time nor interest, and it's so far away. For maybe the payoff isn't that great. You're not going to like a great hotel,
Right,
great
right, right.
vacation. It's like,
More adventurous.
yeah, I'm just curious to see how life also operates so far away from here in its own way, and it works, and it's fascinating to me as humans how much we have conquered this planet and made it our own.
Yeah, it's probably the most adventurous answer I've gotten. You're the cover your eyes, pick the place on Google Maps.
Forget about it. I mean, a trip. I've never been to Greece also, so I would love to go to Greece. Someone take me on their boat, go island hopping. I mean, I'm not opposed to that either.
Listen, if you ever do plan a trip to Greece, let me know. And let us know. I'm sure we can help you out there, and we'll tell you where to go, all the hot spots.
My landlords are from Thessaloniki, and they say it's beautiful, and they've invited me so many times. And I would also love to visit the north of Greece, and I've seen pictures, and it looks beautiful too.
You really are in the center of the Greek community.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I walk outside. There's a guy that has a massive Olympiacos sticker on his car, like parked on my street. And then it's like I've got like the Cypriot League of Astoria, and then like the Greek soccer team here. I'm in the heart of it, man.
Listen, at this point now, we just have to get you some Olympiacos stuff. I have an extra Olympiacos flag. I'll send it up to you, and you can just join the red and white. How about that?
Thank you. Will do.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed listening. We got 40 minutes out of here. We took up a lot of Nico's time. He's a very busy guy. So, Nico, thank you again for joining us and chatting. A lot of interesting things, great insights from him from his end as a commentator about Olympiacos, Greek football, and his opinions on where things could go and what could be done. It was amazing stuff. Nico, thank you again very much. And tell our followers where they can find you. For those that don't know you already, tell them where they can find you and check out any projects that you're doing.
Yeah, you can find me at Nico Cantor 1 on all social media with all the stuff that we're doing with CBS. So find me there on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm there. Ari Evkaristo.
Thank you so much, Nico Evkaristo. And guys, check out the channel for the interviews, all the interviews that we're doing. Full Court Thrilos happened as well. That is back. Greek Wednesdays are coming back as well. Now that Costa and Vageli are back and Dimitri from their vacations, they are back from the holidays. So we'll have the Greek Wednesdays as well for all of the Greek speakers. Thank you all again. This is Theros International. I'm Adi, and we'll see you all again next time.